Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday and a lovely break with your families. And I'm excited today. We are going to be talking to Nicole Carter, and she is a licensed clinical social worker with over 20 years of experience in the field, and she's worked for the city and the county. Hello. And she also has a private practice, and she's going to be talking to us about self relieve your own stress and anxiety in your daily life, and how do they actually work? Why do they work? I've found her on Instagram first and seen some of these, and they seem so simple that they don't seem like they would work, but they do. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
So good to have you here. Why don't we go ahead and jump in? First of all, I hope you had a lovely holiday with your
Yes,
loved
same to
ones.
you. Same,
Thank
same to
you.
you. I know that we were back and forth, but that's the nature of holidays, right?
Yes, you were so kind because I was late getting back to you with some of the prep for this meeting. So thank you
And I
for being so
felt the same way. You were so kind to me as well. There were nights where I was like, oh.
I was supposed to respond to that email. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad to talk with you. And actually, I should say I was pleasantly surprised when I found you on Instagram. It was through one of my friends who is here in Sacramento. But at the time, I didn't make the connection that you are also here.
Yeah.
So that's really fun to find out. But why don't we jump in? You can tell us about yourself and what you do.
Happy to. Thank you so much. I started off as a social worker. I was a high school guidance counselor. So my senior year, I wanted to be a peer counselor. I went to college. I wanted to be a peer counselor. I said, there's something to this. So I went to UC Davis. And after that, I started working in group homes, got a bachelor's in psych, a master's in social work, because I figured, hey, I think that's really more what I want to do. And then as time with counties and child protective services, I kind of evolved to get licensed. I never thought I was going to be a therapist, but I moved out to Sacramento to be closer. I co-parent, so it was easier to come out here, cost of living. And I said, let's try it. I listen. I think I could do this. And then so it's partial therapist, and then I'm also a clinical supervisor. So people who are gaining their hours to become licensed, I supervise them.
So what exactly does a social worker do?
So I like to think of a social worker as there's a lot of case management and resources, and they're really people. I like to say we stand in the gap. You know, where you're in a crisis or you're in a moment where you need support, and a social worker can come in and help you identify what's available to you and hopefully guide and facilitate you to, healing or independence, empowerment. So social workers are like case managers, but when you get your license, you can move on to more clinical aspects. So therapy, running programs and things of that nature. But I'm a good old fashioned social worker. I'm nosy. I want to know what's going on. I want to fix it.
Well, and it sounds like you were always drawn to this kind of work. What was it that was so attractive to you?
I think a lot of times we give what we need. And so when you're a social worker, you get to listen, but at the same time, being able to help somebody, support somebody, and letting somebody know that they're in our field, in social work and psychology, we have something called unconditional positive regard. And I love holding that space because as you give, so you receive. So it's I guess it's my own form of therapy.
Well, and can you say that again? Unconditional positive, what was it?
Regard. So that is the essence. That's the goo. When you get a therapist or you're around someone and you're like, what is it about this teacher? What is it about this supervisor? What is it about this? It's unconditional positive regard. It means I'm not going to look to conditions in order, right, to see you in a positive way.
Which I would think, especially for somebody going through a crisis, would be so
Yeah.
essential.
Yes. And it creates safety. When you talk about the nervous system, that's essentially what helps to create safety. And when there's safety, you can have connection. And when you have connection, you can move and take action.
So what are some of the things that you see people going, like that you see in your practice, whether your practice or in the social work, what are some of the challenges that you see people facing?
Historically, the biggest thing, aloneness. We all kind of struggle with that feeling of being alone and thinking I have to do it all myself, or having been conditioned or having been raised in a way that's kind of forced us to stay in survival mode versus being free to create and being expressive. So when I say survival mode, I see a lot of anxiety, depression, analysis paralysis. I want this thing, Nicole, but I'm not pursuing it. Burnout. 2020, we saw a lot of burnout.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when with your self-soothing techniques, like why it's so important is because I feel like so many of it, especially with the pandemic, although even before then, I'm sure a lot of us were dealing with just kind of low-grade depression and anxiety. But like you said, we're kind of conditioned to just keep going, to
Yeah.
think that either it's normal or we feel ashamed to talk to people about it. And you just, like you say, you're just kind of survival mode.
Yeah.
And whereas it seems like what the tips that you're teaching kind of help people figure out how to get through those situations without just getting through them, if that makes sense, like without just powering through,
Perfect.
like actually, be taking care of themselves little by little as opposed to letting it build up, which happens so much. And I know you talk about helping people build personal resilience. So what is that and why is that such a key component?
So when we talk about personal resilience, it's going to look different for everybody. The reason why I really started sharing self-soothing tools was because in 2020, in January, my bestest friend transitioned without my permission, did not ask me if he can go. And then March, we had COVID. And so what I was acknowledging for the first time in my field, which is this selfless act, don't bring yourself into the room. It's all about the person in front of you. I was upset, right? And I was going through this. And so with the self-soothing, I had to find my own personal resilience for Nicole, not for the service of others, right? I needed to figure out how I'm going to take care of myself while holding space for others. And I think before I kind of, like I said, it was my therapy. So you're helping and you're showing up and it's wonderful. But then at the end of the day, I'm a wreck.
Right.
So that's where I realized, like, oh, after all these years, Nicole, you have to have your own way. You have to take care of yourself. And it's been a beautiful journey.
And also, like, it seems like you're teaching it as a skill. Like this isn't something that just comes naturally to people. You have to learn how to do this, and you can learn how to do it.
Yes.
And it's not. I mean, it takes work, but it's not something that's so difficult that you can't do it.
No, I mean, it's definitely not difficult. It's just what you said. It's that awareness and that willingness maybe to give yourself something. And if your whole life has been self-sacrifice, if you grew up early learning that when you think of yourself, you're selfish, or there are people around you growing up or in your environment that didn't have the capacity to allow you to be an individual, then when you get stressed and those nervous system things kick up, you don't even think to soothe yourself.
Right.
And so that was a big eye opener to me, is that what can I do? And so I started thinking about, the stress response system, survival. We talk a lot about trauma, but then I thought, what am I going to be able to do in the session with a client when the client is talking about something and now I'm getting what I now know is more activated, right? What am I going to give myself in session so that I can be more present and hold the space for someone without ignoring myself?
Right. Right. And I know maybe because I know what you're talking about because I've watched a lot of your Instagram feed, but maybe for those that haven't, could you give us some examples or what are we talking about when we're talking about these self-soothing techniques?
Sure. So self-soothing, the way I like to think of it, a couple of different ways. I'll give you some general ways that people generally talk about reparenting. Have you heard that? People are talking about reparenting, right? And so what does that look like? For some of my clients, that looks like when they're about to do something and they make a quote unquote mistake, instead of I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that, they reparent themselves with the voice that says, hey, how are you going to know unless you try?
Right.
It's okay. It's our right to make mistakes. This is how we learn. Self-soothing is really, when we talk about the physiology, what I'm doing is I'm actually tapping into my autonomic nervous system and my vagus nerve. And I'm trying to get over to what we call parasympathetic, which is that rest and digest part of our nervous system. And I'm just essentially trying to send a message to my limbic center, my amygdala, that although something may look like a threat, right?
Right.
I'm here. I'm here. We can take some breaths.
Mm-hmm.
We can take a moment so that I don't have to go fully into survival mode. And so self-soothing is that gap. It's the opportunity to say, I'm aware that I'm starting to sweat right now. I'm nervous. I want to be coherent as I'm talking to you so everybody can understand me. So I know I'm nervous. And at the same time, I'm conscious to slow my voice down right now. And that's soothing Nicole because it's sending a message that, hey, we don't have to speed up. It's okay to slow down.
Right.
That's not a threat. So just things like that.
So it's kind of like, I know a lot of us have heard about the flight or fight or flight, fight or freeze. So this is helping you when you feel yourself starting to go into that mode to tell yourself, okay, there's not a saber-toothed tiger. We're not, we can like, kind of like you're like you said, you're sending that message to your brain that you're safe and that you can relax, right? And
Yes.
so what are some of the ways that you do that? I mean, a lot of us think about like breathing exercises.
Perfect.
The first thing that comes to mind.
It's the first thing and it's the best thing because you can consciously move your breath. Mm-hmm. The thing I teach everybody, even in a consultation with a 15-minute consultation, is the key to breathing is that your exhale has to be longer than your inhale.
Okay.
The extended exhale is what tells the amygdala, which is like a smoke alarm,
okay,
in your limbic center. Mm-hmm. The extended exhale is what signals to your amygdala, that, oh, we're okay. If you ever notice, if you're running, right? Right? So
yep.
when you go, like you're blowing out a candle,
mm-hmm.
This is what it listens to. You can't talk this thing down. You cannot talk your amygdala down. You have to do something we call somatic or something physiological to send a message. So what I like to teach people is simply, you might come in for 4 and out for 7. In for 3, out for 8. And so you're just slowing your breath down. So it's simply just in for 4 and out for 8. If you do, yeah.
No, I was just thinking about what you were saying about how you can't talk down the amygdala. I mean, which goes back to what everybody always says, you can't just tell somebody to calm down. You know, that makes sense if the words don't really help with it, but doing the breathing, especially like you said, that extended exhale, that makes much more sense.
So if it's one thing to say breathe, it's another thing to remember extend the exhale. Mm-hmm. And try to slow it down and just imagine like you're blowing out a candle. Mm-hmm. So that's what I give people all the time. Another one that I love, if we get all sciencey, it's called heartmath.org. That's the organization that teaches, it's called Heart Focused Breathing. It's from heartmath.org. Wonderful free resources on that site. And they have looked at what they call heart rate variability. So when your heart rate is, they look at how can we get like your respiration, your heart rate, how can we get those to line up? And I always think of people who are on a rowing team. How do we get these 3 aspects of our physiology to line up? And so what they've done is they've made what they call a quick coherence technique or heart focused breathing. And so I'll ask people to simply imagine or place their attention on their heart center. You can, if your hands are available to you, you can place your hands on your heart center, because where our hands go, our brain tends to focus on whatever we're touching. If your hands aren't available to you, you imagine your heart center. And when you do that, you're going to start off with the breath. So you're going to take maybe 3 in, 5 out. And as you're doing that, you're going to start imagining your breath moving to and through your heart center. So now you're going to see that breath moving through the heart center. And so you're just going to imagine that breath moving in through the heart center and out through the heart center. And when you do that for maybe just 2 minutes, what you'll find is your respiration, your heart rate, and there's one other aspect, I can't think of it off my head, Those three physiological components come into alignment, and what you get is coherence, what they call coherence. And that too sends the message physiologically that, oh, okay, I'm safe. Oh, I'm all right. And it's a quick, they call it quick coherence. But really what it does is it just calms us down. And it's a way to physiologically send the message to the nervous system, to the amygdala, that I see you, I hear you, and I care.
Oh, I love that. I mean, that I love that it's something, it's just this quick breathing exercise, and yet it's very profound as far as connecting something that's very physical, but also connecting it to your emotions for it. Well,
yeah, that's where the power is, right? The power, emotions, energy in motion. And a lot of times people come to therapy and what do they want? I want to control my emotions. I don't want to be in my feelings. I'm tired of my emotions controlling me. And I'm like, ooh, your emotion was probably the first thing you got, which is more like to signal you or to inform you or to guide you. What you're really saying is, I don't like the protective way I'm showing up, right? I don't like showing up like this,
right.
right? I don't like showing up like Hulk, or I'm tired of just freezing Nicole. And those are the outward appearance, but the emotion is what I want people to make friends with, because that's the guidance. If you're upset, it's probably because you got disrespected, or you feel disregarded, or you feel somebody was minimizing you. But when you show up like this, people only focus on this, or you're taught not to be this. So then you come into therapy and you say, I want to control my emotions. My emotions are ruining me.
Instead of thinking, why are the emotions?
What are they telling me?
What are they trying to tell me? Right. Is that the main perspective shift, or what kind of perspective shift do you think people need to do when they think about self-soothing, or think about how to kind of show up for themselves and take care of themselves more?
Well, you just said to show up for themselves. The biggest, after a session, maybe I'll go walk and I'll do a little happy dance, or I cry tears of joy, is when the client say to me, Nicole, I really had to consider myself. I really had to let myself know that, and I'm really big on this, I see you, I hear you, I care. Your nervous system is always asking, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you care? And do you see me is the awareness. Oh, I'm starting to get mad. Do you hear me is, let me slow down. I need to look into this. And do you care? How do you attend? So I just went like this instinctively. I didn't put my do not disturb on. I'm so sorry. I instinctively went here when I said attend. And so this practice is called self-havening. If you look up a havening technique, it's two brothers who did a lot of research, two brother doctors, and they've discovered that you can use certain touching points in your palms. And what this does is, whether you come in here, which they call the self-hug, or you come here, which they call the hand washing. So I'm just rubbing my hands on my palms like this. You can do figure eights. Some people do this naturally. They don't even realize what they're doing, right? So you got the self-hug, you have the hand wash, and then there's like a face wash, which you take your hands and you come up over your eyebrows and you come down the sides of your face. Now, some people, you have to figure out which touch feels best for you. Some people, it took me a long time to get used to the face. And then you come in here with under your eyes and you just rub down the sides of your face. What they found with those three touches is that it took the brain waves from beta, which is our busy brain wave. Okay, busy, I have to get things done. And it drops it down to a slower brain wave, theta. And that, just shifting your brain wave, also starts to signal to the amygdala and the nervous system that, hey, it's okay. Or it also helps to, if you're having a traumatic memory, if we come in here and we start providing this to ourselves, it's almost like, the way I look at it is, when we self-haven, it's kind of like, if you have the old school, I'm 47. So in the movies, the little cartoon people would walk around with a bomb with a big fuse in it, like that black little bomb with a fuse in it. what I have found is the more I do self-havening around hard stuff is the fuse comes out. And so you may be left with the memory, but not the charge, of the memory. So if in the moment also you're feeling overwhelmed, to come in here, it slows the brain waves down, which then sends the message like, oh, not again, it's not to shut the nervous system up, it's to show up for the nervous system and partner with it and come in connection with yourself.
I love that. I love that it's showing up for your nervous. I mean, that's kind of a different way of thinking about showing up for yourself, all the different parts of yourself. And I have to say, I really encourage people to go to your Instagram feed because you have a lot of these tips and these techniques. If you're like me and you need to watch it again a few times, like that's a really easy way to access them. And one of the things I like is that, like you said, you can find which one works best for you. But some of them, like I was just thinking the hands, I'm just imagining like if you're in a meeting, people might not feel comfortable doing the self-hug during a meeting. If they don't want to be that obvious, you can just do your hands and who would know what you're doing, but you know that you're kind of calming yourself down. And then maybe when you're, in your own space, you can do the other. And also I know you had, a reel sometime recently when you were talking about practicing these, not just when you're feeling anxious, but in your regular times, to get almost like into the habit, not wait until you're in a crisis and then you're trying to remember, what was that again? How do I wash my face? That we can practice these and have it become kind of like a more of a habit, or more build up that skill, that self-resilience.
Yeah, and as you do that, and I want to say thank you, A, for finding me, B, for watching the videos, and C, referring. I haven't in a while. I'm very regulated. I've learned that about me. Like, I said, Nicole, you have to get back to this because I have a course coming and all this good stuff. Because I'm living here. Like, things have happened in the past year where I've responded in a way where I'm like, wow, this me 2 years ago, I'm hulking out on somebody, or I'm running away. I tend to be someone who flees. I was a flee person. But what you said is, and I'll just put the scientific, is that we're actually rewiring the brain. So when you do these things, I tell people to do it before you go to sleep. It actually helps people go to sleep. The heart coherence, if you do that when you lay in bed, you will be more calm. So I have my clients do it before they go to sleep. I have my clients do it first thing when you wake up, before the world and anxious thoughts start jumping in there. Give yourself some attention, attune to yourself, because what that does is the pathway to stress, like you're in an open field, here's the dirt, it's dirt. Everybody goes down that way. You start laying down new grass in your brain. And this is what they mean by rewiring your brain, is that it's not that it goes away, but you start to create new pathways where when things happen, your nervous system, it's like, remember that fuse? It says, oh, that's not a threat like it maybe was 2 years ago. So yeah, this is how we rewire our brain.
I love that. I'm going to start doing that at night or when I first wake up. That's such a great way to do it. And I'm just looking at the time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this has been so fascinating talking with you, learning the techniques, but also learning the science behind why it works. So I love getting to talk with you. Everybody, I encourage you to go check out our Instagram feed. We'll put the link also to the website. I don't know if you want to give a shout out. Did you mention that you had a course coming up?
I do, because everybody's like, okay, Nicole, how do you do it? So now that I'm 3 years and I'm like, oh, like I'm pretty grounded and regulated for the most part. I'm like, oh, there are 5 little steps, right? So like the big thing was like, do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you care? Right? That's a big thing for us. And so I'm saying, okay, in 2024, let's go ahead. Let's get a membership. It's going to be the Self-Soothing Club. We're going to have a membership. We're going to come in. We're going to have things online. We're going to have all the practices will be in there with explanations. So yeah, that's coming this year.
And where can people find that? Just go to the website?
So right now it's just my Instagram, and then as it develops, I'll be posting there to give the external website. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everybody
having me.
Yes, and just got a comment. These are great techniques.
Yay.
I agree. This is really wonderful. And if you're joining us late, We will have it up in just a moment on our Instagram, and later you can find it on our YouTube channel. Thank you. So good to talk with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.